class. Nothing important.
Got it. We still can't hear you.
Can we hear anyone else?
Yeah, can somebody online talk?
Can
Is
you
it
hear me?
everybody?
Hello?
Hello?
Can you hear me?
She's trying.
Can you hear me?
Nope, can't hear Gina. You hear all the online people. Okay.
Is something connected?
Yep, I got everything connected. Let me just. Actually, this is not on. Why? Oh, I know why. Sorry. That was totally on me.
How
Can you
about
hear me
now?
though? Yeah.
We can hear you. Can
Yeah,
you
I
hear
could hear you.
Now we can hear you.
me?
Good.
All right.
We're good. Sorry, a little tech glitch there. HDMI versus VGA. I forget what I'm doing. Okay. No, I forgot what I was talking about.
You were talking about annotated bibs.
Yep. Turn those in tomorrow. Next week. I was just testing you. You guys caught me. Next week, no class. We have, yeah, that's in the syllabus. You just freaked me out. I mean, it's in the syllabus. Let's just
Yeah, it is.
look at it real quick.
Oh,
Oh,
and
so
then
we
the
don't have
next
class,
week
we
it's
just have the
online.
annotated bibliography. The next week after that is online?
Hold on, no, just wait. Just wait.
Then answer our question.
I'm trying. You guys are so impatient.
You were so patient with us. Thank you.
Okay. Get there. Syllabus. Make you sick as I scroll past all of it. Okay. Here we are. Today is the 1st. We're going to talk about KTPs. Next week, no class. And that is to give you an opportunity to, I mean, not like you're going to interview people late at night, but maybe you will, but take the opportunity to do your interview. And remember, you're interviewing a CTRS that works in a facility, so I don't count, neither do any of our other faculty count. And you're asking about kind of this hypothetical, if you could do any research in your facility, what would it be about? And what they would think about that. Make sure that they understand that this is a hypothetical, because in past classes, I have had people freak out thinking that our students were asking them to do research. And they were like, yeah, having a hard time.
That's an MS student, or like they've gotten an MS, or does it have to be?
No, it doesn't matter. Just be any rec therapist working.
Can it be a current PhD student?
No. Cannot be any of our current students, online PhD, in-person PhD, or faculty.
So like past coworkers?
Past coworkers are totally fine.
Is this for, sounds so bad, I'm sorry. Is this for everyone?
Yeah. That's okay.
Past students that aren't students anymore.
Like undergrads who've gone out and gotten jobs, or master students who've gone out and gotten jobs. Yeah. Yep.
Sorry, you said 2.
One.
One.
Yeah, guys, this is in the syllabus, so you can go and read the details. We already went through it, but I'm just refreshing you, letting you know that that's due in 2 weeks. So no class next week gives you an opportunity to work that into your schedule somewhere. Oh, I lied. It says it right on the syllabus. 2 CTRSs. So you can just write it up all into one write-up, but yes, do talk to 2 people, preferably from different facilities, just so that you can get different perspectives. But again, this is meant, what have we been talking about all semester? Research and practice. So talk to people. Do they do it? If so, what are you doing? Great. How is this working out for you, type of a thing? If not, why? What are the barriers that you're encountering? So this is going to be a little bit of applying what we've talked about. Ask questions. Have the same discussions that we've had, just with your colleagues, ex-colleagues, whatever, in practice. This should be really, I think, eye-opening for a lot of people and interesting. All the years I've done this has always turned out to be a really interesting discussion. So when we come back on the 15th, everybody will meet online because I will be at a conference. So we will still have class, and I'm sure that I'll have good free Wi-Fi. because I'm staying at a nice hotel. So it should be okay. And then we'll just talk about those interviews. That's basically what that week is going to be all about. Yes. You have a question? Wait, I hear somebody else too. I had two people.
It was token mail.
Oh, token mail. Go ahead.
I'm hearing a lot of feedback. Anyway, what time are our annotated videos due?
Midnight.
Right on.
When did you say this interview thing is due?
In 2 weeks on the 15th.
Oh, it's not on this little graph thing table.
It's discuss the interviews in class.
Oh.
Where's the writer?
Mm,
I couldn't.
oh, dang.
Yeah, I didn't even know this was a thing.
I knew it was a thing, but I didn't know.
I didn't know.
I am so glad you all didn't. I was like, I'm the only PhD student here showing.
No.
Oh, I know. Sorry. Confused. I'm confusing. Dang, I'm really mixing my two classes together. The interviews that you guys did in the other one.
I'm not in the other.
You're not in the other
No.
one. The other. I'm confusing Heather left and right. I apologize, guys. It's that time of the semester. Okay. You're doing the interviews. 2 interviews, right? This is in lieu of class, which means this is like a class assignment. This is graded through your class participation. So if you come to class on the 15th when we meet all online, right? And you have nothing to talk about, then you'll lose participation points overall in the end for that. There is no graded anything. You want to take notes while you're talking to your people so that you'll have something to talk about. There's no official write-up to submit or anything like that. Sorry. I know, sorry. I have interviews going in both classes and I'm just mixing everything together, okay? So again, because we're not having class on the 8th, this is in lieu of class. This is like class participation, so you need to do it and be able to come and talk about it. And I will ask everybody to talk about the people that they interviewed. That's all we're doing for the whole 2.5 hours. So come prepared to get like 5 to 10 minutes to talk about your interviews.
Okay. Are there specific questions that we need to be asking?
No, not specific questions, but what I just said. Are you doing research? If so, awesome. Tell me all about it. How is it working? How do you make it work? If you're not doing research, why? What are the barriers that you are encountering to that? Whether it's personal, like I don't know how to do it, or organizational, like they don't support it. Ask those questions, and then do like a hypothetical. If you could do research here, what would you want to do? Let's just talk about it. Keeping in mind that this is not real. I'm not asking you to do it, but let's just talk about it.
Is it possible to interview like a CTRS that's a faculty? No, it has to be practicing.
Has to be practice because this is research and practice. This would also be very strategic of you, master's students, and even you doctoral students, to do this potentially with a site or population of interest for a thesis or a project or a dissertation, and see if there's something that could align with maybe your topic. And it's really hard to get access to a population for projects and theses and dissertations and such. And so this would be one where you could make a relationship with somebody, and then maybe through the process of having this conversation, you spark their interest in it. And then next semester when you're on working through research methods, you could email and say, hey, remember when we talked last semester? Now I have to do some research. What do you think about partnering together? And they'd be like, oh yeah, I was so excited after having that interview with you. That's how it's going to go down. I promise. Are you able to interview your peers as in at your place of work? Peers? Or what do you mean by peers? No. No peers in this class who are working. Do other people. You can interview your coworkers, but not each other. I want us to spread our wings, expand our networks, right? no other master's students in our program and no other doctoral students in our program. So don't call Karen and ask her about research and practice. Gina. All right. So that's in lieu of class next week, do the week after in class. Sorry for freaking everybody out there, mixing everything up. And then what's scary is that we only have 1 week left of class after that. I know. I hope to have everybody's lit reviews back by next week, doc students. And so you would be able to work on those while over Thanksgiving and stuff like that. And I know that says work on lit review or annotated bibliography, but you guys have already turned in like your final master's students. You're not turning in and getting feedback and then making changes. So disregard that. I don't know why I had that like that. So this is really like our last real discussion about things. Oh, sad. Tonight's our last big content night. All the other nights are just kind of wrapping things up and getting ready for presentations. So on that note, any questions about the remaining weeks of the syllabus? I see a lot of deers and headlights right now.
It's just that's just the frozen expression of the week.
No, you know what? Some people I've noticed like their body language whispers and other people's body language screams. And so your body language is screaming right now. So
That's just been every day this week.
yeah. Online crew, it's a lot harder for me to read your body language. So you have that layer of protection for me to critique your responses to things.
Are we gonna presentation? Yeah, are we gonna review the presentation? Just like touch on that.
We're talking about it all day today.
Yay.
That's the topic of the day.
Yay. Okay.
That's the letter of the day. Sesame Street. Okay.
We talked about that at yoga. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So KTPs. As I was reading through people's questions and comments, there seemed to be some people who were like, yes, this is awesome, I'm on it. And other people who were like, what the heck is this? I'm so confused. And so let's try to clarify some things. So one of the questions that I noticed was, this seems a lot like evidence-based practice. Is this different? Is it the same? What is this? Why do we have two different terms potentially for the same thing? So let's talk about that. Let's just start. What do you guys think? Is KTP and evidence-based practice, are KTP and evidence-based practice the same or different?
I didn't think they were the same thing.
Okay, you didn't think it was the same. Who else doesn't think it's different? They're two different things.
They're different. I think they're different too.
Okay, and who thinks they're the same? Or similar?
Similar.
Shannon, same, similar, similar.
I think they have similarities, but they're not the same.
Okay, so let's talk about what makes them similar based on what you learned in the readings.
Both use research to educate. Sorry, feedback because I can hear myself.
That's weird. Does somebody in here have their mic on? Okay, I'm sorry, I'm not sure. Okay, let me just try this. What about now? Do you still hear it?
Okay, I'm just gonna. No, I don't hear it anymore.
Okay, well, so now we're not running our mic through the big system, so you guys are gonna have to talk really loud in order for my laptop mic to pick it up. Heather, that's really to you because you're the quiet talker in the class.
Really?
Yep, you like whisper. Okay, so what makes evidence-based practice and KT similar? So Holly, you said that they both use research to what?
They both use research to educate and kind of better the field. So like therapeutic recreation and evidence-based practice, you're trying to improve practices to better serve your clients. Same with KTP. So, I mean, that's just one.
Right, okay. Anybody else want to add to that?
I guess it reminds me more of like evidence-based practice where you're looking at such research and seeing how it applies to
what you're doing, implement those changes.
Okay, so you're not just looking at one thing, you're looking at a bunch, a group,
Yeah, like plan, process, pay,
and using that to make changes, okay?
So it says at the very beginning that it's describing the underutilization of EVP. So it's trying to like bridge that gap. So
Mhm.
it's like kind of enveloping EVP.
So that's where they're different.
Yeah.
This is where they are two separate things, maybe two sides of the same coin, but not the same side.
I think the KT is like more of a process. Like they have models. They do. I put in my notes that they have like entire conferences on this
Mm-hmm.
to try to educate people. So I think it's more of a process or a systematic process that OT has to put out as much education to as much people so then they can
Yeah.
practice better.
There are also entire evidence-based practice conferences as well. So, yeah, I hear somebody online potentially unmuting themselves.
I was just going to say, I was going to go with the difference. I didn't know if we were still stuck on similarities because I viewed them as different. I viewed, just based on like the definitions and stuff, KT as more like a better route for professional development type situations, where evidence-based practice, I feel like you're focusing on like one avenue, like you really want to like figure out one treatment intervention and validate that, versus KT is kind of more holistic, I guess.
Okay,
That's my understanding. If that makes any sense.
it does make sense. I'm going to say yes to everything everybody said. None of that is wrong. I mean, evidence-based practice does sometimes pick only one article and or one study and use that to justify programming. Knowledge translation does take multiple studies all together and use that to change programming as well, whether it's a very specific this one programming or programming as a whole. It is a more holistic, in my opinion, also based on definitions I've read, so similar to Holly, what you're saying, a more holistic approach. I think they're really, really similar. Not identical, but very similar. And so what was it that you said? I think the point that Hannah made is what really highlights it, the difference between the two.
It's kind of saying we're underusing EVP systems of care. So like that's what KT is, this problem, and they're trying to bridge that gap.
Yeah, knowledge translation, that's the thing that I think is the distinction. Knowledge translation is trying to address the fact that we have all this evidence out there, we just don't use it. And so, yes, there is that one great article that could probably help you improve some aspect of your programming, but it doesn't get used. Why? We've talked about this in this class so far a number of times. What are the barriers? Access?
It doesn't get used because we're not getting the information out to where it needs to go, whether it be the client or the customer or our cohorts. Wherever it needs to go, we are not getting that information passed around to all of those people, whether it be all at the same time or whoever needs it the most at the time.
Right. So we are not doing a good job disseminating our information. Even if we do get it out to every single awesome place that it should go, practitioner-focused journals, more scholarly focused journals, every conference that we could potentially present things at, if we get it out there, there's still an access issue because facilities don't have subscriptions to those journals. We don't go to conferences, blah, 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 right? So there's an access thing, there's a dissemination thing, barrier, in terms of why we don't use the evidence. Hence not doing evidence-based practice then. Right?
And the other thing that I was thinking about too is when we do get the information, are we using it appropriately? So the person who has the knowledge isn't always the person that we're getting it from. And so is that information that's being disseminated being given to us properly? So it's not always the best translation. Like they're saying, the knowledge translation, is it always the best information that we're getting? So it doesn't always come to us in the best form.
Okay. So yes, on all of that. It's not always in the process of disseminating it in whatever way that may be. It might not always come to us in the way that's most usable for our needs, skills, abilities, etc. Right? Is that basically what you said? Okay, so I mean, I don't know if there's a one clear-cut answer to my question of are they the same or different? Do we feel a little bit slightly better about what knowledge translation is from a definition as much as we can define versus evidence-based practice? I kind of see evidence-based practice as being the, we do evidence-based practice, right? We use knowledge translation to do evidence-based practice. That's kind of how I look at it. That's Dr. Townsend's perspective on it. What do you guys think of that?
That's what I thought.
Does that help you conceptualize what it is we're going to talk about today a little bit more? Okay. So how do we produce knowledge translation plans, or how do we do knowledge translation?
Was there knowledge? Was it called knowledge to action?
Yeah, so that that is a very specific process.
Yeah.
Let me open that up really quick.
So is this producing like a research document, or is it just a process you go through?
Yes.
What?
Was that in the
I kind of
This one.
talked about it around the bush, but I think
say that again? Is it what?
does it produce like a research document, or is it a process you do on your own?
Just like a knowledge experience in your
process.
brain type of a thing that
Yeah.
I don't actually have anything tangible now out of having done knowledge translation
Like, am I just
other than
doing
having
it?
knowledge in my brain.
Kind of, yeah. Like it's something you do in practice.
It's the first one.
Okay. So
Yeah.
there is like a document.
We do produce something. So I mean, I guess there are some different approaches to knowledge translation, but what I'm trying to get across in this class, and this is something that I've talked with all of the RT faculty about in terms of what we think knowledge translation is. I've also talked to some other RT faculty not at Clemson about what we think knowledge translation is in recreational therapy, and conveniently or inconveniently, there's no KT and RT type of articles. Yeah, that's on my list of things to write under like 20 other things first. But we think that it's meant to produce some type of tangible, this is how you do this with this population based on all of this knowledge. That's what we think. And these articles don't necessarily explain the exact process of doing that, but we've talked about it a little bit in this class thus far in the semester, right? Think back to when we talked about systematic reviews, and there's that whole flow chart of like the step-by-step process of producing. Remember that PowerPoint slide with all those little squares and all the lines that went up, and then a next row of squares, and then all the lines, and then all that? Yes? 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 Okay. This particular article kind of lays something out like that with this cone and arrows and stuff like this. So you could follow a process like this, or, we'll talk about it today, another process. I think this is just really meant to help conceptualize the way that we do it. This doesn't really give you the step 1, do this, step 2, do this, step 3, do this type of a process. This is more just to conceptualize the process type of a thing. You have a question, Hannah? Oh, I thought you were raising your hand.
I would have a comment.
Oh, comment? Go ahead.
Yeah. And me and Gina actually discussed on the discussion board that the research implementation model in the selected KT planning models is a lot like the API process. So that's the one that jumped out to me, and I was like, oh, this looks like it could actually be done.
Yeah. Okay, so that is very similar to, I think, what the KT process is for RT. So we pick a population, right? What's your population of interest?
IDD.
Okay, IDD. What particular outcome are you interested in looking at with them? It does make it a little bit easier if you're attached to a facility and organization that has goals pertaining to that population. So in terms of this student experience, this might be hard to do, but let's pretend you work somewhere and
Okay. So increased independence in young adults.
okay, so the outcome is really independence,
Yeah.
right? So like what you've done with your annotated bibliography and or your lit review, you're going to scour the literature, right? And find everything you can find about that population and that outcome. And then what do you do with that information? Right? Because it's all out there. That's available to, well, I realize, acknowledge that there are barriers, but it's all out there and available. What is the next step, though, to using that knowledge?
Seeing how you can apply it to your programs.
Exactly. Synthesize it into some usable nugget and then say, okay, I work in this place. How am I going to use this information in this place? How am I going to use this to change how I do my programming, to support my programming, to change my programming, whatever my programming? But this is where knowledge translation doesn't always happen, right? It gets put out there in whatever journals, and then it just sits there, right? We've talked about this all semester, it just kind of sits there. And maybe a grad student stumbles across it in the process of doing their thesis or their dissertation, right? Or a faculty member who happens to do research in that area knows about all that research because they're contributing to it. Probably maybe one of a few people in RT contributing to it. And so they know about it, and so they share it with their grad students type of thing. But beyond that, it doesn't have the super duper wide reach, right? So knowledge translation is about gathering all of that, synthesizing it into something usable, and applying it to that practice. And then what do we do with it? Because it's still just existing somewhere that might not be accessible to everybody. What should we do with that? How do we get it out? How do we get that knowledge translation out? This is the same kind of issue that is the problem with like broader level, research. We do these great studies, we write them, we get them published, and they just kind of sit there. And so if we were to take knowledge translation, or if we were to do knowledge translation, take all of that, gather it, apply it to something, we still have this issue of getting it out. So how do we get it out in a usable format?
Could you connect organizations like ATRA or at your state level and see if you do something like a flyer, something that's super easy, gets to the point, not 20 pages long, and see if they can send it. Like I get emails from NCTRC all the time, like with their monthly newsletters, just something like that where it can just be sent out. It's mass. I mean, it's low cost because it's going out through email, and it's getting it out there. Whether people read it or not is a different thing, but you're still trying and you're reaching a lot more people.
Exactly. Newsletters of some sort. Okay.
To go off that too, like using if there's a recreation therapy page on the hospital's website or on the organization's website, like they give you room to like say what we do and types of interventions we're running, really using the media because that's where all the people are looking.
Right. So if there's some type of social media presence or something like that, here's RT at Shepherd Center. Here's our website for rec therapy at Shepherd Center. And look, all of this information about how we treat people with brain injuries and spinal cord injuries. And we've gathered all the knowledge about that and synthesized it into something usable. And we want to make it available. Yeah, that'd be great. How many of those are out there? Not much. So somebody asked a question in the discussions like, is this out there in RT? How much is this prevalent? How prevalent is this in RT? I've never heard about it till reading this article. Non-existent in RT. I mean, OT does a fantastic job of getting their research, producing research, and then getting it out there. And KT doesn't just exist in OT. That was just the example that I provided, but there are a lot of other organizations that do it as well. Health professions that do it as well. Nursing does it. PT does it.
Is it more? I just noticed, I put in the discussion board too that it seems like a lot of the organizations that were mentioned in the article were Canadian.
Yeah, I think that's just because where I got the article.
Okay, that's
no,
not
it's
like
not a
specific-
Canadian
not
thing.
like a just
Those
like
dang
huge
Canadians.
in Canada.
No.
Okay.
No, but okay, so there's this other piece that I think would be really, I just sliced my finger on this desk. this really, I think that would be a really useful way of getting knowledge out. So Marika actually told me about this. She was in a rehab hospital, and she was just walking down the hall, and she saw this pad of paper on the wall, and it was just like, you know, kind of like this thick, 8 by 8.5 by 11, regular size. But it was like, you know, the pads that have the gummy stuff at the top, and you can just rip the sheet off. That's what it was, kind of a pad of paper was. And she was looking at it, and she started paying attention. It was something like unto, I'm just totally making this up, but you know, yoga for stroke patients. Had a nice little blurb, paragraph-sized blurb of current literature supporting that intervention with that population. And then it said, this is how you can do yoga with stroke patients in your facility, lab, hospital, whatever. On the back, it had a nice little diagram to kind of explain some things, and then it had a reference page. So it was front, back, one page. You could tear that off. The whole thing was just that front, back, one page thing. She said that they were called tear sheets. And you could just walk through this hospital and see something about an intervention or a population that interests you and just tear that off and take it with you. Practitioners walking down the street in this hospital could walk in and just tear one off. She tore one off and brought it with her. What a great way to get information out, right? What do we think about that here in like RT world?
It would be awesome, but where would we?
You could make a bundle selling things like that.
Yeah. You could. Sure. But that not all rec therapists go to conferences.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. The people at the conference.
Probably most do interact at ACTRA or your local, whatever, regional thingy. So if something like that were available at a conference, that would be pretty awesome, right? Let's say you did something like long-term care and I don't know, something specific to the elderly population in a long-term care facility. That would probably make a killing in ACTRA, since that's such a huge portion of who our practitioners work with, right?
Could you put something like that on on the rec therapy page of the website? So that,
Sure.
assuming that only rec therapists will look at it and
Well, right.
practice.
But what if like an OT walked by that and thought, yoga, that'd be pretty cool. Are they qualified to do it?
Mhm.
That's another discussion for another time.
Yeah, but what if they
So it's different when you're in an interdisciplinary facility, right? You do have to consider scope of practice, whatever. And hopefully somebody wouldn't look at it and be like, I'm just going to do that. Even if they may or may not be fully up to speed on it. But wouldn't you rather have somebody use current literature, current evidence to do something than just be like, wake up one day and be like, I'm going to do yoga with my clients today? You know, and they go down to like Clemson Yoga and they ask people to come in and like teach yoga, and then they think they're doing therapy with their clients, and things get a little sketchy, right? I'd rather have somebody take my knowledge and use it and design it correctly.
Isn't it recreationtherapy.com that has all of the links, and they give like people can submit intervention ideas? Is that the website? Okay.
Well, you guys keep talking about websites, so I'm going to show you this one that does exactly what we're talking about. And some of you may know it. Get it over here. rtwiseowls.com. Okay, so this is through Temple University, their rec therapy program. And get bigger. There it goes. So they have turned this into an evidence-based resource for practitioners in our field. Anybody can get access to this, anybody. You don't have to be a member of anything. You don't have to be an alumni of Temple. You just got to be a rec therapist and know how to find it. I guess that's the challenge. There's the barrier. You got to know it exists and how to find it. So we could just search potentially a topic. Let's see what we can find with yoga. Oh, look, I've searched this before. Yoga and veteran, and see what happens. What? Okay, so there's something here posted on in 2013. I will answer that in a minute. okay? But look, it brought up one thing. So let's click on this. Oh, yeah, my computer has to do a lot of thinking today. The use of yoga, meditation, mantra, and mindfulness to enhance coping in veterans with PTSD. Here's the citation. Okay, so I can tell you because I know who these people are, or at least I know who this person is. This is a KTP, a knowledge translation plan, that was produced by the rec therapy students at Temple. So this is basically the assignment that you guys are going to do now for the end of the semester. They have the same assignment at Temple. They have a nice little website that houses all of it and puts it up here as available to practitioners if you're interested in yoga for veterans. If you don't know where to find any information, you could Google it and it would bring this up. And now a grad student has kind of done the work for you, type of a thing. So let's click on it to read that research summary. Got it. This is a KTP. This is very much like what yours will look like. Okay, but don't freak out yet. We'll go over those details in a minute. No, don't freak out. Okay, so look, here's this nice little title of what the intervention is and the population. Okay, here's about a half a page of literature, maybe like unto what you've already gathered. And then here's the application of that knowledge into practice, right? Yes, that's what this is, knowledge translation plan. This is how we're going to apply it to practice. And then they created this little visual. You'd have to read what they wrote in that knowledge translation plan to understand what this visual means, but I'm guessing that here are the benefits of yoga: increases this and this, decreases this, this, and this. Here's some benefits of meditation: increases, decreases. Mantram, is this like chanting? Okay. Look, I looked straight at you. You guys. Increases, decreases, and then some mindfulness. Increases and decreases this. Great. Application to RT practice. It's cost effective, short duration, simplistic, skill acquisition, social inclusion. It's not really clear really how this stuff will lead to this, but they're saying that this is what it will lead to, the outcomes.
So on some people's screens, you can see your cursor, but that cannot show up. And Kate just said, I'm not seeing a model of the genome. So I don't think they can.
Weird.
Because I can't see it on our. Yeah, it's like your cursor's moving around over something.
Let me try again. That was really weird. What about now?
Now you can see it.
Yes.
Oh, look at all those heads nodding. Ah. Okay, sorry about that. Thanks for letting me know. I'll start again. Title, intervention, population. These are the search terms, the databases they searched. Didn't we do that at the beginning of the semester? It's all coming together. Yeah. All right. Here's about a half a page-ish of the synthesis of that knowledge, all those articles they gathered. Here's what it's telling us about yoga in this population. And then they wrote a knowledge translation plan. So here they are applying that knowledge to practice. They can be done, I'm reading down here, all of these activities can be done alone or in group settings, but yoga is the activity most commonly delivered in a group format. For veterans, it can promote social inclusion that may even extend beyond the session. So they're making that application based on the evidence. So this would be evidence-based practice, right? If you used their suggestions for designing a program, et cetera, et cetera. Can you guys monitor the chat? It's hard for me to do both at the same time, and I can see that people are chatting. This is what a tear sheet would look like? Yes, great question. This is exactly what a tear sheet would look like. Look, they got their references down there. It's not a ton. This isn't 20 pages of references type of a thing, right? This is usable, easily digestible. I can walk by and be like, yoga, veterans, I like it. You know, off the little pad on the wall. This is probably one of the better KTPs. I will say that again, given that these are produced by graduate students at Temple, you need to be a little critical about their quality. I mean that in a good way. Okay, so that was one example. But on their website, on the Wise Owls website, they also have other stuff. Intellectual disabilities. They will put links to scholarly research, articles here and there that they don't have copyright, so they can't put the entire article on here, but they will link you to a database for it. Okay, so here, this is a good example right here, posted on March 12th, 2017. This is an actual article, research article published in Disability and Rehab, the journal. Strategies that facilitate participation in family activities of children and adolescents with profound intellectual and multiple disabilities. That's a mouthful. Parents and personal assistance experiences. So this is an actual research article. They put the abstract here. They put the citation, which is great, and then a link to the publisher's article. I don't think you can get the actual article. Let's look though, unless it's open access. There you go. Yeah. Magical powers. So if this was not connected to, say, like Clemson's library, and we have likely a publication or a subscription to this, I could probably get it if I clicked on get access. But if you're searching this from your workplace, you're not a grad student, and you hit get access, it's probably going to say $39.95. Yeah, purchase it. Whoa, $54 just for that article.
So that's only for 24 hours.
Whoa. Yeah. Okay, so again, perfect example of the barrier, right? So what they're trying to do on RT Wise Owls is we'll use our access, right, through kind of a grad student Clemson, library type thing. I'll gather as much as I can about this topic and synthesize it for you, all you practitioners. Synthesize it for you and make it freely available on this website. Cool, huh? So then it's just about finding, for you guys, if you want to access it as practitioners or grad students, finding what works for you, what falls into your interest area. I will say that as you guys are producing your KTPs, you cannot use their KTPs as literature in your KTP. Does that make sense?
Would you like us to have like a model of that?
Yes, we're going to talk about that more today. You guys are jumping the gun, like ready to go. Yeah. So that's a great question. A lot of this class was influenced by Heather Porter, and she's at Temple University, and this exact project that she does with them. So the KTP portion of this class came out of what they do with their graduate students at Temple. And so in talking to her after I developed this class, she's like, well, if you guys want to send us your KTPs every semester, we'll put them on our website, which is an interesting idea. Yeah.
It's not like a bad thing, but
Yeah, we're trying to come up with our own version of something like this. It's not about like stealing anybody's thunder or anything. We're not trying to eclipse what they're doing, but we feel like we've got a lot of students who could produce that as well. And so we'd like to have it kind of have a Clemson stamp on it. And so, yeah, so we're working on it. We're working on it. So anyways, this exists here as a fantastic resource for practitioners, right? So let me ask this question. Who is responsible for producing the knowledge, the KTPs, for our practitioners to use?
Everyone.
I think the answer is everyone, but that's me on my soapbox, right?
I think it's everyone, but it's just not really realistic.
Well, why is it not realistic?
Because of all
What's not
barriers
realistic
we
about that?
Because of the barriers.
What would be the barriers to producing a KTP?
Oh, no,
You have
not a
to do research
KTP.
again, like you can't produce this.
I thought you
You'd
meant
be
doing research.
producing a bad.
No, okay, so let me clarify my question. Who's responsible for creating KTP type things that would go on like an RT Wise Owls or a RT Wise Tigers? I don't want to like steal their name or anything like that, but you know, our own little Clemson version of it. Who's responsible for filling that content, producing that content?
Everyone. Practitioners, researchers, I mean, anybody who wants to further the field.
I think so too. But I agree with you that there are some similar barriers, some of the same barriers that practitioners encounter in terms of producing those individual studies. I think that they would also encounter in the process of trying to produce KTPs. Okay, so you guys have already done a lot of the steps of creating your KTP, pulling all that literature, synthesizing it in the form of either a lit review or an annotated bibliography. You know, that's not necessarily a skill that entry-level practitioners have. We've talked about this all semester. Yeah.
Well, I asked, but obviously, I guess not. With undergraduate, there, I know we learn evidence-based practice. What is something that they start learning, like to do with KTP instead?
Instead of what?
Evidence-based practice. I mean, I know it's the same thing. It's like the step before evidence-based practice, but would like you guys teach KTP and then evidence? Yeah, to undergrad.
What class would we teach that in? Trends and issues?
The class will
What
teach
class do you
evidence-based
do
practice.
evidence-based practice?
That's open to anybody. In what undergrad class would you learn about this?
Case study class, like our one
I think we had a pretty
we did it every class, I guess, but
it was like a specific project.
we
that
did a
was-
case study and we had to do like evidence-based practice, like specifically. I feel like you could easily do a KTP that class.
I know that a lot of our online students were kind of are products of the Western system as well. So you guys are probably talking about similar things, but online students, do you guys have any thoughts into where would KTPs, learning how to do that, exist in the undergrad curriculum, either at your own institution or an ideal curriculum?
I don't know if that could, if I think all undergrad programs should have some sort of like research, something, some class about research. And I think that could be part of it because, I mean, you can incorporate just that gathering. It doesn't have to be actually conducting your own studies, which you go on to do when you have your master or your PhD or whatever. It's just learning what it is. I mean, that's something where you can gather data and synthesize and do that at the bachelor level, I feel like. So
Sounds like a research methods class to me, an undergrad research.
yeah.
Is there like a program development or program management class?
Well, it depends on what program you're in.
Okay. Well, I'm just, if you're developing a program, would you want your program to be evidence-based and would KTP fit in with that then?
Yeah,
What is?
so it's like our
You
management
could
class here,
easily put it in the management class.
a management type class.
It was forced
Management, but I was also gonna say like, for Edge, if Edge was split up with like the concentrations instead of all together, you could find room for like maybe trends and issues and like basic level RT knowledge in the Edge semester, and then have more room later on for this, because in my opinion, I just felt like Edge wasn't very, I don't know, I feel like it could have been more focused on each concentration instead of like me learning about
Sure. Just so you guys are aware, Edge at Clemson is a sophomore level. It's the entry level experience into the PRTM program here. It happens in the sophomore year and it combines the core curriculum, you know, that basic freshman level core curriculum all into one semester, and it's all experiential, you know, it's hardly classroom based and things like that. And so everybody is in like one big group. It's not like your typical traditional learning experience and everything is blended together. You're not RT or tourism or whatever. You're all just ed students. Yeah, PRTM students. So it's an interesting learning and teaching experience. But sure, so maybe if there are some other topics discussed there, RT specific, that would free up time in the later RT specific courses once you get into the major to add something like KTP into something like a trends class or a management class or a modalities like facilitation techniques. I don't know that this would fit in a modalities class necessarily.
We did it, I just found this
Maybe.
PowerPoint from, we just had this, or I found this old PowerPoint from Western. It was a senior level class, but it was her administration class that we did a whole project.
So it's their
Management.
management class.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, which is totally not, topic specific. We made it that way, but yeah. So yeah, this is an interesting question, right? Who's responsible for producing the knowledge that our practitioners use, whether we're talking about synthesized knowledge in the form of a KTP or one article at a time, and where do they learn the skill to do that? An undergrad program or a graduate program?
Well, and so how we were talking about how it's a kind of everyone's responsibility to do the KTP, but I was the one that posted that. I've never heard of this before prior to now. So if people don't even know what it is, how can we expect people to do
Well,
it?
we would teach it, obviously.
But yeah, so it would just be like a from this point forward kind of thing for the
Yeah.
profession.
So I'll tell you, it would be a change, a shift, right, in how we practice, how we develop our programs, and it would probably take a generation for that shift to take effect and have it just become standard practice. I'll tell you that after last year's 8710 class that I taught, I had all the doctoral students. When they first learned about KTP, they were like, what is this awesomeness? And why have I never heard about it before? And they got super duper heated about it, and they came together as a group, and they submitted a proposal to ATRA that was KTP and RT, and they were going to come in and they had this fantastic idea to, it was an education session, so it was 90 minutes instead of the little 20-minute research presentation type things. They were going to teach everybody, practitioners, about what KTPs are, how we should be doing them in RT. Here's an example. Here's 4 examples. It was going to be 4 of their student projects from class. Here's 4 examples of KTPs and how you could use them and how it could impact practice. I thought it was a fantastic presentation. I know I'm biased because when I teach this class and 2, I was on the presentation with them, but it didn't get accepted. And I was like, again, biased, but I felt like what a great opportunity, right? If we're trying to get knowledge out in the most digestible format, and we every year happen to have a concentration of rec therapists all in one place, practitioners in one place, wouldn't that be a great place to teach people about KTP just in general, but also about how to produce it and to kind of maybe address the fears of, oh, I can't do research, I don't know how to do that. After going through the process of today and then the rest of the remaining weeks in class where you guys produce your KTP, you've basically already done all the work for it. It's really not that difficult of a process. Way easier than an individual research study where you're collecting data and doing all this stat stuff and blah, blah. That's not what we're doing in a KTP. We're taking all of that already exists. And as Jake mentioned, there is a barrier that you still might not have access to those articles, but there are ways to work around that.
Why did it get rejected? They don't say why.
They don't tell you.
So,
They just don't accept it.
not to go down a rabbit hole, but like I know
It's
so
okay. Go
many-
down the rabbit hole.
Well, I know so many people that submitted to ATRA. So many, like 20 people.
Mhm.
Well, that's a lot from like me to know. But they all everyone's getting rejected. So if we have all these practitioners or people in academics that want to get information out
Mhm.
and they want to present and they want to share, but it's just not enough time, or like ATRA's not.
We only have so many days
yeah.
and so many presentation slots.
So wouldn't
That's
it be
how it always
better to
is.
do like multiple? I don't know.
That's how it always is.
Like, they should
Multiple.
just open up more chapters.
Yeah.
Because there's only so many.
More
Like,
chapters
more,
as in the
like,
regional.
association, yeah.
That's up to the state. That's not ATRA's job.
I feel like ATRA has never been my favorite conference because I go expecting it to be like this
Sure.
amazing thing. And it was good, but I like the Midwestern Symposium way better because I feel like there were presentations that were actually like, oh my gosh, like this is awesome. I took so many notes there, and then after
Sure.
I kind of just like sat there. And
ATRA has had up years and ATRA has had down years, as
Yeah.
have all of the regional
is there
organizations.
with, I don't know how this works, but with Marika being the president, does she have any?
You're gonna go knock on her door?
Rabbit hole.
You're gonna go knock on her door and be like, let's talk about the conference this year.
Which one should I
Does she
go
have
to?
any like? I mean,
Or online.
Anyway,
like in changing that, why are we not accepting important presentations that have to do with KTP and like furthering the field and stuff?
well,
like
there
that?
are committees that manage all of that stuff. So for example, I'm the co-chair for the Research Institute. So if you want to submit research to present at ATRA, I'm the one who manages that process. I don't do the actual accepting. We have a bank of reviewers and I send your abstract out to them and they read it and they either accept or reject. And then I go through and look at all their recommendations and I agree with most all of them, because they're good reviews. And that same process happens for the regular educational sessions is what they're calling research and then education. And so, the students submitted this presentation and whoever the reviewers were decided that it wasn't good, it wasn't of value. I don't know the reason. You don't really get told when it gets rejected. You just say sorry. I mean, in the research we say sorry, rejected, and here's the reasons why, but I don't
Right.
in the education sessions, I don't know why. But I mean, in my opinion, I thought that was like the prime time to do it. And maybe as a group of students, this time around, we could submit again to this coming year's ATRA.
Can that original group try to submit that again?
They sure can. They can make improvements to it if they wanted to. Wouldn't that be awesome if we had last year's group do it and then you guys come together and also submit a big, huge, like KTP and RT? Like maybe if there's enough submissions about it, they'll
Be like, hey, it's a
whoever this
thing.
committee is that reviews will be like, maybe this is a topic that we need to have in our conference.
Isaac Temple submit too, since they have a fancy website.
They don't. Very interestingly, they don't.
Submit too.
That's right. Heather Porter doesn't ever go to any ATRAs.
What?
Yeah, she doesn't go to ATRA.
Is that like a thing?
They're
I don't know. She just has never been to any ATRAs. A
I'm
protest.
sure there are good
I don't know.
ones, too. I didn't mean to like
Yeah.
dog
No.
on ATRA or anything, but
No, but if you're a
practitioner,
practitioner and you have limited resources to attend conferences, right? You want to go to something that's going to help you improve your practice, right? And so what are those things that help you improve your practice? And maybe everybody has a different opinion about what improves practice. Is it going to the Research Institute? So getting these 20-minute presentations about one study at a time, grouped by like topics, here's everything that has to do with adaptive sports. Here's everything that has to do whatever. Or is it going to, I'm trying to think of what some of the ATRA education sessions are like. I don't go to them often because I'm running the Research Institute, but what's that? I'm totally forgetting that. Bandy RT. You guys know what I'm talking about when I say that? The Bandy RT program?
it sounds familiar.
Yeah, somebody did that. There was like a part 1 and a part 2, and
Oh,
in
the
order to
Octoband?
get the what?
The Octoband?
No,
No,
it's
okay.
called Bandy RT, and I don't know what it.
That's
No,
like an assessment. Yeah.
is that an assessment? Okay.
I do that.
Yeah. Okay, that's not what I'm thinking of.
me too. I think,
I don't know. I cannot remember the name of this thing. It was really kind of crazy. But this lady was like an expert in this particular technique. And so she submitted a proposal to do a part 1 and a part 2. And it was an hour and a half each session. In order to get the CEUs for that session, you had to go to both sessions. So it was like sign in, sign out type of a thing. And you could, you had to attend both, and she went into like crazy detail about how to do this treatment modality, right? So she had all of her stuff out there, she demonstrated, she let people do it, she gave them actual techniques and skills, right? So I would think that that would be beneficial to a practitioner coming. I want to come and learn a new treatment modality for this population. And I guess it's just like a crapshoot, right? You hope that there's something in the conference for you that year. So you don't really know. I mean, how far in advance do they release the the program, but I'm guessing
Not
that
that
as a
far in
practitioner, you get that program and you look at it and you say, this looks interesting. I'm going to register for the conference. Or this one, I like this one. I'm going to register for the conference because I really want to go to this session. Oh, look at all those Research Institute sessions. That's really interesting. I'm going to go to that. That's the
They don't
only reason.
post it that far in advance.
They
Like
don't.
you sign up for the conference and then you get the session information.
I never saw that, Trace.
Well, and I've never been to any Research Institute sessions, and I think that's like probably like,
Well, now you're going to start going.
but the research thing to practitioners is probably like, oh, you know, I'm just gonna go to.
But really, so all the people at Research Institute are like grad students and faculty, right? Who are producing research. They're producing their own and they're presenting it there, and then they're supporting the other research that's happening in academia and RT, right? And then you have all the education sessions, which are really geared towards practitioners. And there are some researchers in those sessions, right? But we kind of live in these two little worlds in the conference. How could we create something that could blend the two together? KTPs, right? KTPs. Like if we had some type of a session that could provide an opportunity to bring the research to the practitioners, right?
I would go.
Or bring the practice to the researchers too. Because there are some researchers, maybe not so much in RTA, this might be more prevalent in other fields, where they just live up here in abstract research land. Like they just like to do this not applied research. It's not applied to practice. It's so out there that any practitioner would look at this and be like, this is not useful to me because I just don't even know what to do with it in practice. I don't think we have a ton of those, but maybe it would be beneficial to have something like a KTP-ish session that a cloud-based researcher out there in random land could come to that and get some insight into what practice is like, and then be like, oh, okay, I can help do some more applied research. I don't know. I have a million thoughts about this.
Does Attra not do mid-year conferences? Aw,
No more after
Yeah.
mid-years. I think like 2 years ago was the last one. They
it
don't
was
do anymore.
2016.
Yeah, something like that.
Well, and then like the Midwest Symposium, the person who's in charge of it is retiring, and there's no one to take over, and they're running out of money. And it's like, I will be devastated if they don't have that anymore.
Mhm.
So like, we have to get more people to take the place of everyone who's like retiring and stuff.
What is it though? Like the mid-year?
The Midwest Symposium on Therapeutic Recreation. So all the Midwestern states go to a place, and
It's like SRTS,
Yeah.
the Southeast Rec Therapy Symposium, similar. I'm going to the ILRTA next week at the Illinois Rec Therapy Association conference to recruit for grad school. Woo! But it's their same regional thing. There's RTI.
Yeah.
It just is just for
I knew of
Indiana.
that one. I mean, I was served on the board for that
Yeah.
one, but I didn't know there was like a Midwestern thing.
There's a Texas one.
Huh.
Yep. So, okay, so do we have a better idea of what the purpose of KTPs are? I know we haven't looked at exactly what it looks like, the nuts and bolts of it, and we'll get there. But do we have a better... Are you guys all on the same soapbox with me now? I hope so. So before we get into... Wow, how did it become 7:15 already? Before we get into what the nuts and bolts are, let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back and look at some stuff. So come back 7:20-ish. So it's 7 or 8 minutes.
No.
That's Victoria. She just got married. She's Canadian. She's really sweet. I can't think of her last name.
What were you all doing? Did you were just there with her?
When you get the Peg Tommy Scholar thing, you come to like work at the conference, and then they give you a stipend, but you like
Nice.
you're like the
I was a
moderators.
peg.
Models.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. So was Michaela.
Mm-hmm.
I just realized that she did me for her CTRS interview. I was just thinking about it. I was like, who will I ask about Michaela? And I was like, oh, that's what she was asking me.
Yeah, I'm gonna do Morgan. Her last name's Morgan.
Life.
I just saw her.
But yeah, they picked me to go to the conference and like.
Are they actually? Well, I know that Michaela's working. Is Morgan working?
Yeah, she's
Yeah,
almost.
Michaela is.
Or she's almost. She's almost.
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
pregnant.
December. She's working in a nursing facility, like a director. But I think she's thinking about Groton, where Ashley Phillips is.
Mm-hmm.
Ashley Phillips, who's that?
Juan also
I'm
Really
so
tall.
sad to ask the CTRS as I know if they use research.
Is she young? Is she younger than me?
Because I know the answer.
I already know the answer too.
It's okay. Have the conversation. But
I
it's more than just asking a yes or no. Do you do it? Right?
Right, yeah.
Well, the
How
one
widely
facility
aware-
I worked at, they have EVP meetings. They have to, all the clinical therapies do. So, but they still don't do like big scale research. But
I'm gonna hit
I
up-
graduated.
Yeah.
I'm gonna hit up someone at a
Oh.
private psych hospital, but like,
Oh, she looks different.
like their own independent hospital, so it's huge.
Yeah.
And then a VA person.
She like
But
left the semester early.
I know
Well,
the
finished
VA
the semester
person's
early
not
and
at what
started
she
here,
does,
like
but-
the semester after.
Okay.
Did she graduate with me? The EVP one was that's where I was contingent. But
Yeah.
at
So,
Harding,
They did their
Yeah.
we've already
in the
discussed.
summer.
Yeah.
Started in the fall.
That's a big fat no.
So I didn't mean to, the Microsoft break.
No.
Oh, okay. Okay.
What's that?
Going on the psych hospital stuff, like when I was teaching last week, and I told the undergrads basically what an acute inpatient, I'm not talking about an independent psychiatric facility, I said acute inpatient psych facility on top of an ER. So you go to a general hospital, you get plunked in the psych ward. It's double lockdown doors, you're not leaving, your patients cannot leave. You cannot leave, they cannot leave, you're there. And like the undergrad's like, flipped out. And I was like, I didn't mean to scare him. I'm so sorry, Brenda. I'm so
I
sorry.
was there. I did that in pediatrics. It was terrible.
But they were like freaking out. I was like, oh.
Did you guys have
So I had
badges or did you
two
have 5,000 keys?
Oh,
We both.
5,000 keys.
But we
And a
moved
badge.
to badges.
We didn't.
No, we
both.
moved to
And on
badges.
my first day, she said, if you lose one of these keys, you owe us thousands of dollars. And I was like, no,
No,
but
it's
she was
true.
dead serious.
It's
She's
true.
serious.
So on my way out, they had actually switched all the locks because I worked part-time as I was finishing up my thesis, so I was like there, but I wasn't. And my interest was like out there, so I was like, whatever, I don't care. I mean, here's my keys. I don't care. Like, I gave it to like a float nurse. She never gave them back. But I just had my badge, so I just made sure I like could get whatever access to the badge.
We could badge into the like
Was that contest?
the little break
first
rooms,
meeting?
but like in and out of the door, the double doors.
Oh,
keys,
in-
into the gym. Keys,
I'll talk about
and
that.
all the options.
See, we didn't do gym.
In
We
Canvas?
didn't, you know what I mean? Like I was on.
No,
In
it's
our
a test.
engineering
I'm
rules.
just testing things out.
See,
I
I
okay,
started
just to make sure, because it said like.
I went in
they were
between all 3 floors, and then we had a gym on the first floor. So like OSU has all of its hospitals on the campus, but they're like there's a Brandon Hospital, it's just like hospital. There's a general ER, and so they go in a tunnel to
That's
the
nice
person,
though. Yeah.
so they can't like be outside right there. But I had a ring with like 25 keys, and I ended up color coding them with nail polish.
So we ended up having all badges, except there was one door that was next. It was badged, like you had to set your badge, but it was next to a fire thing on the wall that you could just pull down. And we had a patient pull down on it one time, and so she unlocked all the doors to everything.
Oh my
gosh! And so I don't know what the rest of the staff did because I was right. I was the one that ended up going after her, so I was just running. But she, like, we ended up having to like badge and lock and like never lock that door in the very back that was next to the fire pole because yeah, you don't think you
Did
moved
you
back?
guys have a legit padded room?
Yes.
We did too. That was creepy.
And you know, we had 2, and I got the opportunity to turn one into what we called as a quiet room. So we put it right next to the seclusion room, and we took down some of the material on the walls, and I put like inspirational quotes up. I put the definition of happiness up. These lights, I put the cloud cover filters over.
It's nice that they let you use that room.
We put in tile carpeting.
Oh.
They had a field day with it. Because you have to keep it sanitary. And then I did like bean bags and like all soft textures, and they had aromatherapy in there. Yeah.
Ooh, I'm just like,
But I'm gone, so I'm sure that room is turned back into a pattern room.
was a good idea.
We tried, because we were working on, kind of what we talked about is like, are you aware of your behaviors? You know, like reduce impulsivity and aggressiveness.
I'm gonna throw something out to you guys, since you're in-person peeps and this is applicable. On November 19th, which is a Sunday, me and Brandy Crow need help with RT students to volunteer with our VA Adaptive Sport Soccer program. We need people who can come and play soccer on the field with us. And then we have 19 veterans coming in to get a adaptive soccer coaching certification. And they need to be able to practice their coaching skills. And so we just need some RT students to come on Sunday and be on the field and be players. And this is obviously
Like bad players, so they can coach us.
sure, you know.
Because you kind of lost me at you have to play soccer, but if they can coach me.
No, they're coaching. They're practicing the coaching skills they just learned.
Okay.
And then if you can stay for the rest of the day, we would pair you up one-on-one with any of those veterans. And we're helping them find resources in their local community to go back and like start their coaching, whether it's pairing up with like a YMCA coaching program or I want to start my own team type of a thing.
And they don't care if they
suck.
coach adults and we're more like
Nope.
toddlers.
Nope, I'm going to be on the
like
field.
skill levels.
Yeah,
like
no, I'm going to be on the field. They just need an opportunity to coach. So some of these people have visual impairments. We have one guy with spinal cord injury. We have a couple with PTSD and a couple with brain injuries. You know, they're all getting coaching certification.
Do they have like a coaching background?
No, they want to get into soccer, and not as players but as coaches.
Sunday the what?
The 19th.
The 19th.
Yeah. So we need 16 people. So
Do you want just graduate or do you care
nope,
about
this has been sent
undergraduate?
out to the undergrads already, and they have not responded.
Can I make an announcement tomorrow in class?
What class are you?
It's Brent's.
It's already been announced to them.
So can
This week.
if we say yes, can I just do the they can coach me part and not?
It would be best if you can stay for both, but yes.
Assessment
No,
and planning.
okay, wait. So didn't you say we have to play with people, or is it just the coaching thing? Where?
No, it's a two-part thing. In the morning, you come and you're a player and they coach you. In the afternoon,
That's
we
the
would
resources.
pair you with them and you would bring your laptop
Okay.
and you would sit with, Josh. And where are you from, Josh? I'm from Kansas. Okay, well, let's look for resources. So a lot of veterans with brain injuries especially have a hard time with follow through. So they come to something like this and they're like, yeah, awesome. And then they go back and then they don't do anything about it. And so we're trying to help them establish resources that they can go back and find quickly, and then action steps to follow through.
I didn't know. I thought there was another playing component.
No.
Like actual playing
No, I
soccer.
think you just when she was like, you have to play, I
Yeah.
freaked out like the actual game
We need
happening.
we need you to be
competition.
players, but no, they're coaching you through like drills and stuff like that. They'll put together a little practice.
I know.
It's just a couple hours in the morning. If you come, we'll cover your lunch, all that kind of stuff.
She's helping run it.
Yeah.
Oh, is she
she's-
really?
Yeah.
She's like, I know about it. I'm really bad at soccer, so.
It's just on Sunday the 19th. So if you're interested, email me. If you're interested, email me.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
even more.
She doesn't recruit me because she knows I'm terrible.
All right, everybody, come back. No.
Hey. I know. Oh, sorry. Hey. There's a PRTM person,
Mhm.
but she's not rec therapy, but she digs soccer. Oh, that wouldn't work for part 2.
Nope.
Nope. Got it.
No, and we really want our TEAM students to come in, and because again, the assumption is that they have knowledge about how to work with individuals with disabilities and
Right.
like what needs they would have, and going back to their communities and helping them make that connection. I know.
Those undergrads in grade
We announced it in assessment planning.
I thought like, all 16 are going to be in this class. They were like so into it.
They should do it if anything for the practice in the community research.
Yeah.
Because that's a big part of what I'm not doing on that in my
Okay.
is reading something.
KTPs.
Yeah, she is.
She was undergrad at
Okay,
Eleanor.
man, you guys have some wild conversations in our breaks and go everywhere with
We
you.
didn't talk about our
All right, so let's look at some example KTPs. I've got a whole folder here from previous years. These are actually not these are not Clemson students. These are all Temple KTPs. And some of them are better than others, and we'll kind of talk about some of the issues. Again, can somebody monitor the chat for me? All right. Dragon boat participation, cool. So maybe let's just read through this one and see a fully put together example. Is that really huge for you?
No.
I tried to blow it up because I know some people, is that okay?
Well,
Yeah.
it's so different on our screen.
Mhm.
It's big enough.
All right, that looks okay to me.
Oh, mine looks tinier.
Oh.
I just don't have that screen.
So these are also students who are doing this in a group, and so there's more than one student on here. This is just going to be your name on it. So put some title across the top of yours, more than just IDD and DD and what?
Are they fake emails?
No, those are real.
Talk.
Oh, I assume they're real, but that's a good point. I have no idea.
That's so weird.
Oh, I bet it's Temple University graduate student.
That's so interesting. That would be so confusing.
But if they
No,
just get a
mine
number.
is 03.
Okay, back on topic.
Okay.
Okay, so you can format yours exactly like this in terms of this initial information. Although I don't really care to have like the Clemson University Department of PRTM. We don't need any of that. Just put the title, your name. You can put your email next to it. And you don't have to put my name on it either. So I really just want title, your name. But I do want this right here. What are the search terms that you used? What are the years that you searched, that search range, the databases that you searched, and the number of articles that you found. Now, I know a lot of you found a ton of articles, and some of you didn't find hardly any articles. But ultimately, I'm thinking that you'll have the 10-ish articles that you pulled for your annotated bibliography or your lit review. Those 10 key articles are what I think should go into this. Now, if in the process of, as class has gone on, I know many of you have contacted me and said, I found other articles that were better. Can I switch them in? Yes, totally fine. Okay, but really keep this to 10. And hopefully these articles are really, really clean and solidly supporting your population and your intervention.
What if they're not?
Then why are you using them?
Well, I mean, it's like, they are, but like, so it's like I'm doing physical activity for stress management. And it's like I found a lot of strong for physical activity and like only one article that supports stress management, but I haven't found like a thing that supports physical activity for stress management.
What's your population? Yeah, so, okay, it will be a challenge. But you can still say, this is the evidence, the available evidence, and I'm making a case for how it could impact programming. So you would just have to be more clear in your writing, and this is not RT-based research, and not most of what they're citing here is not RT-based research, and so that's okay. You just have to make it clear, like this is how this could influence RT programming.
So I can still make a case for physical activity for stress management,
Mm-hmm.
even though it doesn't say it in the article.
Mm-hmm. That's what you should be doing with your annotated bibliography,
Yeah.
that you're reviewing all of that literature, and that you should at the end be able to say, if you were to write like a one-page summary, that all of this literature says, do this with this population. That's basically what you're going to put into this KTP. Do this with this population.
What if you don't have a population?
You should.
Okay,
Yoga.
so remember when I emailed you and how Marika wanted me to change my thesis thing? And she said
Yes.
that like she doesn't want me to have a specific population because she wants to find like the foundation, I guess, and have evidence about using yoga in practice. So like all of my articles were like using yoga in like practice, like whether it be inpatient psych or like eating disorders, like there's a whole bunch of different
Yeah.
populations in it. So I was actually
So yours might be slightly different.
yeah, I just probably should.
It'll just be,
Populator.
so where everybody else is who's got a population and an intervention kind of specifically tied together, you're really just talking about an intervention. So yours will kind of take a 10,000 foot view, and everybody else's is taking like this very specific focused view. It's just slightly wording things a little bit differently. And so your little visual model at the end will look different, but it's great. I think you can still do it.
Okay.
We'll just talk more.
Yeah, I have a lot of other questions.
Okay. So let's work through this document though, so you can see more of an example of what it should look like. So title, your name, and your credentials. So all of you should put CTRS on there. And then these search terms, years, databases, and number of articles. Okay, so what's this? Summarize it. I'm gonna let you guys read this really quick. See, and I'll let you know if I think this is well written or not well written. Let me know when you're ready for me to scroll. Ready, online people? Ready to scroll? Okay. Stop at the knowledge translation plan section. Sorry. Okay, don't read the KTP section yet. Is everybody done? I'm going to cover up that KTP section for all of you people who are going to jump the gun. All right, so I thought this was a really well summarized write-up of those articles, having never read them. But I feel like if I was like, whoa, I really want to read some of these, because they did a good job of piquing my interest in those things, but giving me enough information that I could get by without having read them. But now I could just go pull those citations and then find the articles and pull them, right? So they summarized overall what the outcomes were of dragon boating. So they did it in a social domain, physical domain, psychological, what other domains? Physical, psychological, and social. Those are the three domains that they were able to find research supporting. great way to kind of organize all that information. And I think any one of you guys with your topics could organize your summary in terms of how that particular intervention addresses domains. Abby, even you could do that without tying it to a specific population. So what are the impacts of yoga on physical domain from this broad perspective in the literature, right? Summarized. So you only have about a half a page, single spaced, to do this summary of 10-ish articles. That's the challenge in writing very concisely for KTP. So doc students, you guys had 8 pages to talk about all this stuff. Now you got to get in a half a page. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, it's a huge challenge. And this is probably the hardest part of this assignment, is summarizing succinctly, okay?
Do you think that's, looking at domains would be the best way to make a cohesive piece when you're taking a bunch of different puzzle pieces? Because I'm kind of in Molly's boat where there's research on outdoor interventions, but none of them apply to downstairs specifically.
So you're looking in a very specific domain already, stress management. So that's in like the emotional, psychological domain. So there wouldn't be any purpose for you to review all the literature on the physical domain. I mean, it's out there for sure, physical activity and physical functioning. It's there, but it's not pertinent to your study, so you don't need to review it. So for like you, or do you have a specific domain that you're looking in terms of like outcomes?
Sense of empowerment and like independence in young adults.
So I don't know what domain, psychological?
Yeah, so it's like
psychosocial. Yeah, and so that's the only domain that you're really presenting it in, and that's totally fine.
Okay.
However, you have to go also with what the literature says. So if you find all this literature that, what's the intervention that you're looking at?
Oh, well, I was just looking at like outdoor-based recreation as a whole. And I was going to ask, so I guess the physical piece, it kind of does play a part because that kind of, it sort of interplays into like the empowerment sort of, but maybe I shouldn't put that in there just for the sake of cohesion and like being able to.
As long as you can paint a clear picture
Okay.
with logic and flow and there's no huge gaps and you're also not jumping from like here to here to here to here, include it. I mean, if it's in the literature, it matters. However, if you are specifically focused on a certain domain, you don't need to cover all the literature elsewhere if you're really trying to target one area, like emotional or psychosocial. Yeah.
Well, sorry, I don't really understand what you're saying about that.
About what?
Well, you said don't cover it or you said, so I'm looking at physical activity, so that, what did you mean by that?
Isn't that your intervention?
Yeah. So like, I'm talking about it.
Yes.
Sorry, I thought you said don't talk about it. Sorry, I did not know what you meant by that. Okay.
But what's the domain that you're trying, or the outcome?
Stress management. But there was no article on stress management for one.
In terms of the impacts of physical activity on stress management?
Well, there was really nothing on physical activity for stress management. There was
for autism.
For autism.
There is a crap ton of research about physical activity for stress management. Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry.
Yeah. It's not specific to autism, but autism, that was a weird way, to autism, but there's a ton out there. Well, you do want to search for it, but if you only found one, then you found a gap in the literature, which is great. That's a great, in some ways it's great because, hey, research needs to happen here, but you have to use all the other literature. So maybe there's literature out there about physical activity for stress management and just the developmental disability broadly, not specific to autism, but just like the broader population. And you could use all of that to support what you're saying to make a case for focusing specifically on autism. And you'd have to justify why you focus only on autism. Developmental disabilities, that's a great grouping term, but the experiences of individuals with autism are fundamentally unique or different from somebody with Down syndrome or somebody with
and there was an article specifically on the stressors versus typical developing and what they go through in their stress.
Sure.
So I found an article about why it's important
to focus only on
stress. Like,
for that population?
yeah.
Good. That's good justification then.
Mhm.
Yeah, you got it. So if there's not, I mean, yeah, there's going to be a ton of research out there about how physical activity is good for physical functioning, but you don't need to talk about that. That's not what you're trying to address with your intervention. That's what I meant.
Sorry. It's
No, you're fine.
So mine is very specific.
Mhm.
It's reducing health disparities for rural women through self-empowerment. So I feel like, I mean, I kind of have the same issue where like there's not one article on all of those things together.
No, and there's rarely is there one article on like all of our things
All the
together.
things.
No,
But
we
there's
use
stuff
the
on,
existing
like-
literature that is related
Okay.
in related areas to support.
Okay.
So say your pieces again, rural.
Reducing health disparities for rural women through self-empowerment. Or,
There's a ton
Right.
out there about health disparities for rural
oh yeah,
women.
I have a ton of stuff on that.
And so
but not
maybe
any-
nothing so much on self-empowerment, but there's probably something about self-empowerment and rural women, or
There
maybe
is.
self-empowerment and health disparities.
Yeah.
So it's a puzzle piece, right? Now you
Yeah.
have to have like
It's gonna
three
be
separate
everything
things to talk
together.
about, and you bring it all together and say, this is how it comes together.
Yeah.
And this is the picture I can paint with all of this knowledge. Okay, so that's what you do in this summary section
Okay.
with those 10-ish articles, okay? Shannon, I see your question. It's about a half a page. I don't want to say, it must be half page long type of a thing, because as we go into the other sections, you'll see about the other space issues that you have. So I would say if you are a full page for your summary, full page single space, that's way too much. You've got to cut that down. A half to 3/4 is probably okay. For the summary section.
With the summary section.
Summarize the literature. Summary of research findings, okay? And use that same heading. It's totally fine. And I'll post a couple of these exampple on Canvas.
I was gonna say, are there examples out there of?
You can go to the RTY Owls and
Okay.
search for the other ones. I've just pulled some already, and I just keep it in a folder to look at every year. Okay, so let's move on to the knowledge translation plan. Let's read this section. How long is this? We'll try to get it all on one page. Oh, yes, there it is. Well, at least on my computer it is. All right, we'll read this section. Ready, go. I'm gonna scroll. Sorry. Okay. Has everybody gotten through that section? Okay, so here, this group of students, they then say, this is what the literature says, and so here's how it can translate into what a program would look like. Here's how you would recruit people. Here's how you would market the program. Here are some structural things about the program, right? 1 to 3 times per week for at least an hour during a season that lasts 8 to 18 weeks. So I'm assuming that's based on weather, wherever you are located. It's team oriented, so you really, show up for your team and regular attendance, that type of a thing, and that addresses the social domain, et cetera, et cetera. They're giving some very applied examples of how you can make a program out of all of this literature. So they're not doing, this one article says this one article says this. They're synthesizing and summarizing it for you so that you don't have to go read those 6 or 10 articles. It's all there. And then they're putting that into practice. There are a few things in here that I don't agree with how Temple does it, and I will point out the differences that I want you to include in your KTPs. There's nothing in here about measurement of any outcomes. So they're talking about how the research says it's great for physical, psychological, and social domains, but there's no recommendations here about what to measure. Didn't we just spend an entire semester practically, in a couple of weeks it'll be a whole semester, talking about measuring our outcomes, right? So I'm saying, in your KTP section, the knowledge translation plan, you need to talk about the outcomes that will be measured and the assessments that can be used to measure it. Now, these don't have to be RT specific. There are a lot of measures out there that can be used to measure the outcomes that we're interested in specific to our RT programs. And so maybe there is a measure of social skill development in kids. Jake and I have been talking about that, but maybe there's a social skill development in adults, or I don't know. So this is where it is recommendations.
Okay.
Recommendations with accompanied citations, right? So if you're going to
Like,
use
this is a good suggestion.
exactly, if you're going to use the CERT P to measure physical functioning, put the citation for it so that a practitioner can be like, CERT P, blah, 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 authors, and go look it up. Can be found in the Big Red Book type of a thing. So in all of the Temple KTPs, they don't have that piece. And I actually don't like that about the format that Temple does. Everything else is basically the same as what we do. Now, if you go to their website and you pull things off of Wise Owls, some of them are better quality than others. I will just say that as a disclaimer, so be critical about it.
Do you mind putting this one on Canvas?
Yeah. Hang on one sec. Let me read some stuff here. Okay, so Shannon, I don't know if your thesis is what you're doing your topic on for your annotated bibliography. I assume so since you're asking that question. So how are we supposed to stay objective? That's always the challenge, right? I mean, you're making recommendations for what a program should look like, and it's based on the literature. So you can put your own personal, I think it should also be like this, that might be based on your own professional experience. But the way to stay objective is to take the emotion out of it and it's fact-based, it's evidence-based. I'm saying that it should be like this because this is what all the evidence says it should be like. And this is what type of programs they're testing. So if you were to go back and pull all those articles that this girl or this group cited here, you would see that one of them had they came once a week. Another one had they came 3 times a week. Another one had they came 8 weeks total. Another one had they came 18 weeks total. And you would have to really, in this one, they're just saying it could be all of that. Well, yes, it could be. But I am challenging you guys to take that next step and say, what do you think is a good, reasonable amount of time? Oh, no. Please don't kick us all out of class. We're all still here? Okay, we're all still here. Okay, sorry. Okay. Yes, this is like a tiny little version of your thesis, if that's what you've done. Yes, objective recommendations. It is a tiny little, I guess, thesis for you since you're already on a different track than everybody else. Okay, there were 2 questions here, Molly and then Hannah.
Well, I was just wondering, well, you kind of answered it, where they had gotten like 8 to 12 weeks or 8 to 18 weeks, but because it wasn't cited, but that makes sense. Like we're reading all of it and then we're using our best judgment of which weeks.
Yeah, and it actually they did. Yeah, they did list it up here. Yeah, so however, some of the women attended sessions 1 to 3 times a week for at least 1 hour per session during a season that ranged 8 to 18 weeks. So you do need to be.
Should have cited it again.
No. You don't really need to cite anything down here in the KT. I mean, they did, but you don't really need to because you've already cited it up above.
Except for the outcomes.
Except for the outcome or the measures.
Yeah.
If you say use this, this, and this, then yes, accompanying citations there. But yeah. But yeah, I think this is where you guys need to take that next step and say, based on the literature, a recommended format, frequency, and duration for this program would be, I mean, how feasible is 3 times a week, really? That's kind of a lot for 18 weeks. Holy crap. Is that therapeutic or is that just fun activity type of a thing? So there's not a lot of clarity on that in here, and maybe that would be some recommendations I would give to this person to add this. Are you recommending this as a treatment to address these certain outcomes? If so, you got to measure those outcomes and you need to be more specific about how often they're getting that treatment. And that's what's missing from this KTP section. Is everybody following on that one? This is the fun part. This is where you get to kind of say, well, this is how I think it should be. And you know what? I mean, it's a little bit weird because, well, who am I to say how it should be, right? But we got to start somewhere. And you can review it up there in that lit review summary section where you're saying it ranged from once a week to 3 times a week to 18 weeks long. And you know, here's some challenges with that. 18 weeks is a long time to expect somebody to go to treatment. So a more feasible option would be this many times a week, this for this many weeks. And maybe somebody will see this and be like, yeah, I'm going to design that program and then I'm going to test it. And then I'm going to do a, you know, study on it and get that published. Based on recommendations from Hannah and Molly, they said do it like this.
What they said.
And so I did. And then they could cite the KTP. I mean, it's not published, but
So we have to do you want us to make recommendations about what to measure, and then you also want us to suggest the tool to which to measure it.
If you make recommendations about outcomes, you could certainly make recommendations about good measures for that. And you don't need like 10 measures per outcome. Just say, here is a standardized validated assessment that would be useful for measuring so-and-so outcome. Okay. Let's look.
Okay, I have a question about my study because it's the use of the essential oils. So, you know, most of the studies are, you know, they all vary in how much time the studies are done. So do I want to look at how long you should try to use essential oils to see if they're going to work to determine if you should be using them? Or do I want to look at using essential oils will benefit somebody with dementia, so you should be applying them to that person once you've determined that they work? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, and it's kind of up to you on.
So I get to choose. Okay, cool. Or I could go either way. I mean, I could go both ways. No.
Option 2 sounded a little bit better to me just based on trying to process that all really quickly. Because I don't know that the KTP could really produce the knowledge to say they work or they don't work.
Right.
But
so
you gather a whole bunch together and then a whole bunch of studies that are kind of looking at having used it, and then summarize that and say, the evidence seems like
Right.
the use of aromatherapy has therapeutic outcomes for this population. And maybe this is where you make that recommendation of, this is what a program could look like to be used, tested more rigorously, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, got it.
I don't know what that would look like, whether you're making recommendations for certain types of oils or for how frequently they smell them, or I don't know that the particulars about the use of that.
Right, exactly. Okay, because I think I got it.
Okay. Go team. What were we doing? Looking at another one. I'm just clicking randomly. Oh, yay.
That's so weird.
Cool. Okay. Hers is slightly different in format, and that's okay. But up here in all this kind of beginning information, again, title, your name, credentials, that's all that's really important. She's got her terms, years, databases, and number of articles. Wow, her summary of findings is really, really short. I mean, look at that in relation to everything else. Super short, so she is a very concise writer. Oh, wait, we didn't look at the other one. Hang on, pause. We got to go back and look at the little visual part. Totally forgot that. The fun little image. You guys will create a visual kind of representation of all of this. We can call it a model, we can just call it a visual. Let's just call it a visual, okay? I think theirs is very cute with a little dragon boat on it. Side note, when I went to Thailand last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever that was, we got on our flight from Bangkok to Chiang Mai. We had the Australian national dragon boat team on the plane with us. All these very cute Aussie boys sitting around me, but strong arms from rowing. But there was also this lady who was like 80 years old, and she was like the captain of like the masters, portion of their team. And she's like, "Oh yeah, I've been dragon boating forever." And I was like, "What?" Anyways, total random tangent. I just thought it was really cool. So this is kind of funny. Anyways, dragon boating. You can see down here, these are the physical outcomes, benefits, psychological benefits. So they put little up arrows or down arrows for whether or not it increases or decreases. Social benefits, it's kind of like the water. It's blue underneath the boat. I assume it's the water. Here's some information about their population. Breast cancer survivors, so females age 18 and older, varying years of remission, physically active. Dragon boat intervention, so duration, frequency, structure. I mean, that's pretty straightforward. So if you didn't read anything that they had in that lit review summary section, you could pretty much look at this and get what they're talking about, right? This is a good visual. I like this one. Okay.
So in the summary, I didn't really see anywhere where they talked about like the limitations to their study and stuff like it.
Nope, you don't talk about that in a KTP. Not really. That goes into like thesis or dissertation or lit review type things, but not really in a KTP.
Is that just because you're focused on what works, get it out there, do it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. What works, get it out there, do it.
I'll make you a visual.
Yeah.
Great.
But this is what we just talked about all night tonight, is that it's not getting out there. People aren't doing it. And so we're trying to be the helpful intermediary between all this knowledge that's just sitting there unused and then practitioners. I mean, we as the grad students in this class, but anybody who's going to be undertaking doing a knowledge translation plan is trying to provide that in between. So here it is, get it out there and go do it. Okay, so what's our topic here? The impact of play and recreation on reported pain levels in children with cancer. Okay, intense. Let's read this one. I'm going to start scrolling a little bit.
Let's read the KTP.
Mm-hmm. More scrolling. Okay. And here's their visual. Okay, so what do we think of this one? Don't necessarily make, I mean, it's not as good. I was just about to say, don't really compare to the Dragon Boat one. Let's just look at it kind of independently, but I guess you already compared, so
Sorry.
it's
It's
okay.
hard not to.
Yeah. I mean,
I feel like it should have more information.
I do too. I feel, but I don't know what kind of program you could put together. Part of that, I think, is because the summary of the existing literature, there's not a lot of details, right? The Dragon Boat one said these different studies looked at Dragon Boat programs that were once a week, 3 times a week, 18 weeks, 8 weeks, and there's not that detail here. So they just say that many of them are identified as recreation-focused treatments. Oh, well, great. Like what? I mean, they kind of talk about that in the KTP section, but okay, bubbles, virtual reality, and video games. Well, okay, you don't just like throw that out and expect that I know how many times a week or what kind or anything like that. I need some more details. So is this something like, I mean, I don't know cancer treatment, but is this a weekly treatment that they're coming to a hospital every week for like 4 hours while they get chemo? And so then they can do virtual reality while they're getting chemo and sitting there, because if I understand chemo, it's just like a tube in your arm pumping stuff in and you just sit there. So do they have like a headset on, or what are they doing? No discussion of that here. And so then to make that recommendation to go and do it, well, I don't find this particularly useful if I'm a rec therapist who works, maybe I'm like a dual child life specialist rec therapist working in a hospital, right? I've got all these kids who have cancer and are going through it. I didn't gain any knowledge about how to help them. I mean, yeah, I know we do recreation based, but you didn't help me here.
I say it sounds very childlike.
Yeah. Progressive muscle relaxation. Again, is this happening like in that 4-hour block of time? Is it every week? More details would be good. I feel like this is okay. Their visual is okay, but if they would have provided some more details about what the programming could look like, you could have easily added in an element here under the recreation play-based distractors of what that would look like. You know, I don't know. I mean, bubbles. She's just sitting there for 4 hours blowing bubbles at a kid. I mean, I have 2 kids. We do bubbles. I pass out after 10 minutes. Like, are you shooting a bubble gun at them the whole time? I don't know. More details on this one. I mean, it's generally well written, but just maybe not the most informative KTP. Should we do one more?
Yeah. It's interesting to see the level of detail when it's provided to you, like in the boat one, versus when it's not.
Yeah.
Because now you're like, oh,
yeah,
I need this and this and this.
Yep. Okay, same thing here, formatting stuff. This is riding the waves, therapeutic surfing to improve social skills for children with autism. Cool. Hey, this is something you might be able to use some of this literature, not this KTP, but review the reference page maybe. All right, let's read this section. So can everybody see that? Okay. Oh my gosh, Kate, is it really that small? You just picked up your computer and like you're touching your nose. Is that better? Oh shoot. And now some of you guys can't see.
Oh,
Hang
we
on.
can
Is
move the chat bar, or we can move the thing.
that better? I know it just zoomed a little bit more. Okay.
I mean, it's small, but I'm also old, so I may be the only one.
I'm glad that I can see your guys' computers because I can see how kind of zoomed it is. This is the best I can do. Scrolling. So this person provided some limitations about all those studies. She did it really concisely. So I think in that sense, it's pretty, yeah. If you can do it concisely, it's okay. Okay, I'm going to scroll again. Okay, and here's their visual. I'm guessing all the blue bubbles represent water. Yeah. So your population, the intervention, I'm guessing that all those EVP components are just like the program components. They're calling it EVP components because they pulled them out of the literature. So program components that they've gathered from the literature. So EVP, evidence-based practice program components. And then I'm assuming all those other bubbles are the outcomes. Yeah, that significant effect, positive effect thing. Okay, so what do we think about this one?
I mean, it's like read the literature.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, refer back to those 2 articles to get more details. And that's fair because you only have 2 pages. So I think this one, like the Dragon Boat, was better than the other play one. It just provided more detail. But I think it's okay to recommend this for, read this for more details. Yeah. I think they did a good job summarizing the literature. Again, maybe a little bit more. I mean, they make these recommendations for these, 7 kind of program components. But there's still no detail on how many times a week, frequency, duration type of things. To make it the most usable, I think something like that would be, here is a realistic, feasible design of something.
You can like not make it up, but like if it's not offered to you, you can say this.
Yeah.
Like you would.
You are kind of making it up, but you're not pulling it off the random tree. You're basing it on what all that literature says.
Right.
Okay. But again, some of those programs are this many weeks and some of them that they reviewed were this many weeks. And so you're kind of finding this middle ground of, yeah, when it comes to a research study, why do we study something, an 8-week program, versus studying a 3-week program, or a once a week versus 3 times a week? When it comes to research, we kind of pick and choose those things, maybe arbitrarily, maybe based on the literature. But when it comes to practice, there's also a reality that is different sometimes from how we design practice to look in research. And so put on your therapist hat, your practitioner hat, instead of your researcher hat right now, and say, in practice, this is probably the best way to do something like this. Even though all these studies are all over the place, in practice, make it look like this. This is probably going to be feasible.
I guess I'm just struggling a little bit because I don't know if I set myself up for this during my original review of the literature, but there wasn't a lot of my articles aren't really intervention.
It's okay.
Intervention focused.
Make a recommendation.
So I can create my own intervention and make my own program based off of that, or
yes.
Okay.
It's not the random tree.
It's
but
coming from it, but I'm creating the program and saying you should try this.
Exactly.
Kind of thing.
And maybe even put a recommendation in that, maybe you should just do a side search of the literature to see if there's any interventions that are like unto what you're recommending. If not, then you could say something along the lines of, this is loosely based on literature, hasn't been tested. I recommend somebody testing this.
So that was going to be my next question is, so while I don't have a lot of intervention-based articles right now, and I'm not using them for my annotated bit, can I pick one and look for those and use it for this project? Or do you want me to just stick with what I've got?
You can for
Okay.
this. I mean, don't come up with a whole new set of articles, guys. You already did the most of the work for this. But if you feel like in the process of doing something this concise and coming up with recommendations, you need something a little bit more, yeah, go ahead and do that. And maybe one of those articles would be one that you list in here. It might not be in your annotated bibliography, and that's okay, but you should not be looking for all new literature here.
Okay.
Oh, okay, really quick, hang on. Claire, and then I think that was Gina or Kate. Kate, okay.
So for the KTP, you want us just summarizing 10 articles still? Okay. Not more than 10?
Do all 10 have to be in there?
You should do the 10-ish that you did. If you have more, you can do more. But if you turn in something with like 58 articles, I'm going to say no.
Okay.
You don't have the room. You don't have the room. Okay. But if it's
and
10 to 15, that's fine.
So mine is the one about rural women.
Mhm.
I found an article about empowerment interventions for older adults.
Mhm.
Do you think that would be appropriate to use and just like to
Potentially.
get an idea of an intervention for empowerment?
Sure.
Because some of the stuff I'm finding about empowerment is like the effects of it, but it's not offering, but like Hannah was saying, it's not offering a particular program.
As long as you can look at it and say, and you're the one thinking about it in the context of rural women.
Right.
If what they're listing is feasible with that population in that location, sure.
Okay.
And you would just say, this is a great example of an empowerment program. Yes, it was designed and developed for this,
Yeah.
but it's very applicable to what we're talking about. Why reinvent the wheel? Take these pieces and do it. Maybe you slightly tweak it to be more appropriate for females or whatever.
Okay.
Kate.
So in the summary, it actually tells you that 2 of the articles are narrative, but it tells you why they decide to keep it. Do we need to do that as far as that level of detail about if they're intervention related articles or just narrative? And I'm thinking because I used a lot about the well, you know, I have 2 articles about a model.
Yeah, so those ones you might not include in this.
Okay.
Unless they're able to contribute to how you would recommend a program looking.
It's kind of the frame, because that's what, you know, looking at a strength-based program, especially where I'm looking at building self-esteem, that's why I was kind of drawn to that model.
If you think that it's going to help you be able to make a recommendation on how a program should look, then yes, you could totally include it.
Okay.
If it's not going to help paint a picture of what this program looks like, but you feel like it's important to include because it gives you this theoretical background to it, you can include it as just like one sentence. 2 articles in the 10 that I've selected are focused on, I mean, are they specific to a population or your intervention?
I think it's more just a frame of how to structure programs where they're strength-based.
I think that's fair to include.
Okay.
And you could say these 2 articles, like they did, are not research-based. They're not interventions. They provide a theoretical framework to understand how to approach or structure strength-based programming, something like that.
All right. So you have to. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good on that, Kate? Do you want to?
I'll see how much I struggle with it once I'm writing it up.
Well, if you need help, you can like send me. I mean, I don't have time to like pre-screen everybody's KTPs before you turn them in. But if you have a section like that, you're like, this is what I'm thinking, you just shoot it to me in an email, I can look at it.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So Holly, I was just reading your comment about all the APA citations. Some people don't like it. I think when you first start learning to read scholarly work, it's not awesome. I prefer it over AMA personally because I see those citations and I'm like, ooh, I want to read that. And I want to know who those authors are. And so that's how I learn who people are, who scholars are, is by seeing their names.
I was like, who is Kevin on Who's Here What?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just harder. It's just when, especially when it's not just one author, and if it's like multiple articles that they're citing, and all of a sudden you have like 10 authors, like a whole sentence worth of like people that they're citing. I'm like trying to navigate through to make sure I don't miss any information. And there's, yeah. Exactly. So it makes it a little more difficult, but.
This line right here, it's like 3/4 citation. Yeah,
exactly.
I don't know. I don't like the numbers only because I can't see who those names are. And so when they say so-and-so said this, I'm like, well, who is so-and-so? Now I have to go down to your reference page and see. But when I just see the names, I'm able to kind of start to keep track of who people are. And I don't know, everybody has their own preference, but okay. Yes.
It's just like having exposure to it.
Yeah, the more you read it, the better you get at doing this. But okay, so I'll post these 3 examples to Canvas. But for now, how do we feel about KTPs? You're going to start down this road now that you've got lit reviews turned in, or at least the draft. Your annotated bibliographies are coming next week. So these KTPs should be very, very short versions of everything you've already done work towards. Yes, everyone's okay with this? Yeah, we'll talk about that. Yes, it will be the PowerPoint on your KTP. So you get like 10 minutes. You know, that's like 3 or 4 slides.
So the KTP and the lit reviews are all like the final draft. They're all due.
Yeah, let's open up the syllabus so that I get it right, since I screwed it all up.
Monday. So for us, for the doctorate students, the lit review and KTP are due. We have to do a KTP from our lit reviews. And the presentation is all due then.
Yeah, okay, so here's next week out of class. Do your interviews. Come back the week after, we talk about the interviews. Again, there's nothing to turn in. This is just in-class stuff. Then Thanksgiving. Woo. Keep on working on your stuff. Not the annotated bibs, they're already done. Work on your lit review and work on putting your KTP together. We'll come back after Thanksgiving. We'll have 1 week where we'll just kind of wrap up this class, and then we'll talk about like presentation type details and stuff. I'll hit the presentation stuff on the 15th of November, just as like a first discussion about it. Come back, do another discussion about it. I'll provide some examples of past presentations on the KTPs. And then the last day of class, which is the 6th, we will start doing presentations. So we'll split the class in half. You can volunteer to go first or second. Don't everybody do that right now. We'll do that.
We know before the 6th.
Yes. Yeah. We'll probably decide on the 15th who wants to go on which day. And we'll have you guys sign up. And then, so doc students, your revised lit review, the final draft is due on that last day of class. Your everybody's KTPs are due on that last day of class. Yep, the 6th.
And your
What time?
In class.
I assumed, but I thought I'd ask.
Yeah, this one is in class. This stuff, it's got to be in class. Because when you come to do your presentation, your KTP document should be done. Presentation is based off the document.
So we have a PowerPoint to do along with like a write-up?
The write-up is the examples that we just looked at.
Uh-huh.
The presentation is just about the write-up. So you'll do a super mini, I mean, really it's like 4 slides. It's a summary of the findings. And here's what I think the program should look like, and here's my visual.
Right on.
10-ish minutes. I have to go, and how many people do we have in this class?
1 billion.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Oh shoot. We have our 4 online people who are asynchronous. I have to figure something out for them. So
They
one,
record it.
they might have to record it and submit it. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, so we have 12 people who are synchronous. So all of you guys who are in every week. And so we will likely split you guys 6 and 6 on those 2 presentation days. So that would be 20 minutes.
20 minutes each?
6. How many can we get through 6 presentations? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, we could get through 6 presentations each week. 20 minutes. Okay.
I really want to do
20
mine
minutes.
right now.
A person.
discussions.
Actually, I lied. It's not going to be 20 minutes because if our 4 online people record their presentation and then submit it and we watch it in class, it's So they get to present in front of everybody. Present in front of everybody. I have to add 2 more people in, so that's 8 people each week. So that is 10 minutes is 80 minutes, and 80 minutes would be
An hour and
20 minutes.
yeah, but we need like 5 minutes transition in between each one. So that really makes it like
7 minutes a person.
well, you get no. Can we still do?
Well, if you calculated like 15 minutes per person, if you're like including transition, then that would equate to like 2 hours, right?
Yeah, that's why I was trying to do the numbers in my head.
Gotcha.
Really, it would be like a 10-minute-ish presentation. A few minutes for question and answer after the end, and then a few minutes for transition. Although we won't get any questions to ask our online peeps. Maybe they can come to class those nights. Maybe, because they have a conflicting class, maybe we can save all 4 of them to the 13th because they might not have conflicting class times finals week. I don't know. I'll work on that. But roughly it's going to be about 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes max to do your presentation. So when we come back on the 15th up here, I will talk about what a presentation looks like. I mean, I just kind of gave it to you, but I'll hit it again. And then on the 29th after Thanksgiving, I'll give you an example PowerPoint to see. And that's it. Sad, guys. We're almost done. You guys are like, yeah. Do you need to use all 10 to 15 minutes? Is it okay if we finish early? If you finish in 5 minutes, I would say that is not a good use of your time. Do you need to go the full 15? Maybe not. But 5 minutes would not be enough time. Does that answer your question? I would say use your 10 minutes. 10 minutes actually goes by a lot quicker than you think. So then what we'll do is that since everybody's pretty much online in their computers here in class and then also online, you just have your PowerPoint pulled up and then you share your screen, since you all have the capability of sharing your screens, and you just run your PowerPoint that way.
Do we need to stand up in front of the room? So we can sit?
You can sit right at your, yeah.
Like it.
It's not like a formal presentation. You don't have to dress up in a suit or anything like that.
I'd rather stand.
You'd rather stand.
All right, any other
It's like, oh,
questions?
sit in front of us and play and talk.
Good job tonight. Great discussion.
Oh.
I hope you guys are all on a soapbox of getting knowledge out there. And maybe we'll blow up ATRA next year with K3 presentations. I know.
I just want to say one thing. I want to say thank you for introducing us to the Mendeley thing. Because I just got an email with like suggestions for articles. Like it just sent me an email with, I was like, oh, now I can look up some more. Thank you for doing the work for me.
It does help that way.
So I just want to say thank you. I just got that email like a half hour ago.
Hashtag game changer.
Exactly.
All right, good night, everybody.
They try.